Why is that black boy standing in my classroom? Take a seat or get out. Professor Hamilton's voice echoed through Harvard's hallowed halls. But how could Marcus sit when a racist teacher's ruler had damaged his back years ago? Humiliated and expelled from class, no one expected this scholarship student from Chicago to attempt what even Fields medalists couldn't solve. Mathematics doesn't care about credentials, Marcus whispered at 2 a.m., chalk dust covering his trembling hands. Only correctness. What happened next shocked the entire academic world and exposed the prejudice hiding behind Harvard's ivy-covered walls. Will standing up, literally and figuratively, cost Marcus everything, or prove that true genius cannot be silenced? Dear viewer, if you are watching my story for the first time, I humbly request you write the location from where you are watching right now, subscribe this channel and press the bell icon now not to miss the notifications of my daily published news stories. Thank you, and let's dive into the full story. Marcus Washington winced as he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. The familiar ache in his lower back had returned with a vengeance after hours of standing in Cambridge University's mathematics library. 3 years had passed since the incident, but his body remembered the trauma perfectly, the sound of Ms. Blackwell's wooden ruler cracking against his spine, the humiliation burning hotter than the pain itself. You planning to stand there all night, Washington? The library attendant's voice cut through his concentration. Just finishing up, Marcus replied, carefully gathering his notebooks. At 19, he became accustomed to the curious glances and whispers. The scholarship student who never sat down. The black boy from South Chicago who could solve equations that stumped professors. Back in his dormitory, Marcus eased himself onto the floor, the only position that didn't send shooting pain through his back. His roommate was out, again, probably at some elite social function Marcus wasn't invited to. He spread his papers across the hardwood, losing himself in the elegant patterns of advanced calculus. His phone buzzed with a notification. Marcus smiled seeing his grandmother's name. My brilliant boy, her message read. Don't forget the exchange program application deadline is tomorrow. Harvard needs to see what real genius looks like. Marcus stared at the message, doubt clouding his mind. Cambridge had been difficult enough, the subtle exclusions, the professors who seemed surprised whenever he contributed something valuable. Harvard would be Cambridge multiplied by American elitism. I don't know, Grandma, he typed back. Is it worth it? Her reply was instant, your pain has purpose, Marcus. Show them what they refuse to see. He sighed, opening the application he'd completed but hadn't submitted. The Harvard semester abroad program was prestigious, selective, and predominantly white. His academic record was impeccable, perfect scores in every mathematics course, 2 published papers as an undergraduate, but experience had taught him that numbers alone weren't always enough to overcome prejudice. Professor Eleanor Whitfield, his Cambridge advisor, had written him a glowing recommendation. She was one of the few faculty members who saw beyond his color to his capabilities. You belong in spaces that weren't built for you, she told him, not because they're doing you a favor, but because your mind deserves every opportunity to grow. Marcus submitted the application, then returned to his equations, standing occasionally to stretch his damaged muscles. Sleep would come later. Numbers were his sanctuary, mathematics the language that spoke truth when people told lies. What Harvard would bring, he couldn't predict. But whatever challenges waited, he would face them standing. 3 months later, Marcus stood at the edge of Harvard Yard, watching students hurry across the autumn-painted commons. The red brick buildings loomed with centuries of history that people who looked like him had largely been excluded from. Mr. Washington. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses approached. I'm Dr. Lawrence, head of the mathematics department. Welcome to Harvard. The handshake was brief, the smile perfunctory. Marcus had become adept at reading these subtle signals. Thank you, sir. I'm honored to be here. Yes, well, the Cambridge Exchange is quite competitive. Your credentials are impressive. The slight pause spoke volumes. Professor Hamilton has agreed to allow you into his advanced topology seminar, quite a privilege for an exchange student. Marcus had researched Richard Hamilton extensively. The mathematician was brilliant, arrogant, and notoriously difficult. His work on complex manifolds was groundbreaking, but his reputation for reducing students to tears was equally well known. "I appreciate the opportunity," Marcus said carefully. "Indeed. Though I should warn you, Professor Hamilton has traditional expectations regarding classroom conduct." Dr. Lawrence's eyes flicked to Marcus's dark skin before returning to his papers. "Your housing is in Lowell House. Orientation materials are in your welcome packet. Good day, Mr. Washington." Marcus watched him walk away, the dismissal clear. Taking a deep breath, he collected his luggage and navigated toward Lowell House. The dormitory was opulent compared to his Cambridge accommodations: wood-paneled walls, leaded glass windows, and furniture that probably cost more than his grandmother's entire apartment. His roommate, Wesley Princeton III, wasn't present, but his belongings told the story: monogrammed luggage, framed family photos featuring people in tennis whites, a Harvard legacy pennant. Marcus's back throbbed as he unpacked. The international flight had been torture, even with the medication Dr. Whitfield had helped him obtain. He'd need to find places where he could stand comfortably during lectures. A group of students passed his open door, laughter cutting off abruptly when they noticed him. "You must be the exchange student," said one, a tall blonde wearing a crimson Harvard sweatshirt. "I'm Aisha Perkins." "Marcus Washington." He nodded, surprised by her direct approach. "You've got Hamilton's class, right? I saw the roster." Her tone was matter-of-fact, neither friendly nor hostile. "Word of advice, sit in the middle. He ignores the back row and torments the front." Marcus hesitated. "I actually prefer to stand." "Stand?" She raised an eyebrow. "Hamilton doesn't allow students to stand. Says it disrupts his concentration." "I have a medical condition," Marcus said, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. The injury was real, but calling racism-fueled abuse a medical condition felt like a concession. Aisha studied him, curiosity replacing skepticism. "Well, good luck with that. Hamilton's first lecture is tomorrow, Peabody Hall, 9 a.m. Arrive early if you want any chance of reasoning with him." She rejoined her friends, their whispers following them down the corridor. That evening, Marcus met Wesley, an economics major with a trust fund and a superficial smile. After brief introductions, Wesley made himself scarce, clearly uncomfortable sharing space with someone so different from his usual circle. Alone again, Marcus stood by the window, watching privileged youth traverse the paths their parents and grandparents had walked. Tomorrow he would enter Hamilton's domain, a place where his standing would be both physical necessity and symbolic defiance. The ancient elms swayed outside, dropping leaves that spiraled down in mathematical perfection. Marcus watched their descent, calculating trajectories to quiet his mind. Harvard might be hallowed ground, but equations didn't care about heritage or skin color. In numbers, at least, he would always find solid footing. Professor Richard Hamilton's classroom buzzed with anticipation. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early as Aisha had suggested, hoping to speak with Hamilton privately, but the professor was nowhere to be seen. Students filled the tiered seats, their voices a comfortable murmur of privilege and belonging. Marcus positioned himself against the wall at the back of the lecture hall. His back was particularly painful today, the muscles spasming intermittently. Sitting would be unbearable. "You can't stand there," said a teaching assistant, approaching with a clipboard. "University policy. Fire hazard." "I have a medical condition," Marcus explained quietly. "I need to stand during lectures." "You need documentation for accommodations," the TA replied. "Take a seat until you have proper paperwork." Before Marcus could respond, the lecture hall door swung open. Professor Hamilton strode in, silver-haired and imposing in a tweed jacket with leather elbow patches. Conversation ceased immediately. "Advanced topology is not for the intellectually timid," Hamilton announced without preamble. "1/3 of you will drop this course. Another third will barely pass. The remainder might learn something useful." His cold blue eyes surveyed the room, stopping abruptly when they reached Marcus. You. Hamilton pointed. This isn't a subway. Take a seat. Every head turned. Heat rushed to Marcus's face. Sir, I have a medical condition that makes sitting difficult, Marcus explained, keeping his voice steady despite the thundering in his chest. I've arranged for documentation from. I don't recall asking for your life story, Hamilton interrupted. What's your name? Marcus Washington, sir. Cambridge exchange student. Ah, yes. The scholarship case. Hamilton's lips curled slightly. Cambridge's diversity initiative, I presume. Murmurs rippled through the classroom. Marcus felt his hands trembling, clenched them into fists. I earned my place at Cambridge through academic merit, Professor, he said, each word carefully measured. Just as I earned my place in this classroom. Hamilton's eyes narrowed. Merit is demonstrated, Mr. Washington, not proclaimed. And in my classroom, merit includes following instructions. He gestured toward an empty seat. Sit. Down. Marcus swallowed hard. Sir, I physically cannot sit comfortably for extended periods. I have an injury. What you have, Mr. Washington, is an inflated sense of exceptionalism. Hamilton's voice rose sharply. If you require special treatment, perhaps Harvard isn't the appropriate environment for you. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus stood frozen, trapped between physical pain and public humiliation. I don't require special treatment, he finally said. Just reasonable accommodation. Reasonable? Hamilton scoffed. Is it reasonable to disrupt my lecture? To distract other students? To imagine your comfort supersedes decades of academic tradition? A few students snickered. Others looked uncomfortable but remained silent. With all due respect, sir, Marcus persisted, standing doesn't disrupt your lecture. My ability to learn isn't dependent on whether I'm seated. Your presumption is astounding. Hamilton slammed his textbook onto the desk. Perhaps at Cambridge they tolerate such insubordination, but here at Harvard, we maintain standards. He turned to address the entire class. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when institutions prioritize diversity quotas over academic excellence. Entitlement replaces effort. The injustice burned through Marcus, hot as the pain in his back. These assumptions, that his presence was charity rather than achievement, that his request was entitlement rather than necessity, were all too familiar. My academic record speaks for itself, Professor, Marcus said, voice tight. As does my published work on non-Euclidean geometry. Hamilton's expression darkened. Published work? And which sympathetic editor approved this work? The Journal of Mathematical Analysis, Marcus replied. Peer-reviewed and cited by Professor Eleanor Whitfield in her recent. Enough. Hamilton slashed his hand through the air. Your disruption ends now. Either take a seat with your peers, or remove yourself from my classroom. Harvard has survived centuries without your contributions, Mr. Washington. We'll manage another day. The challenge hung in the air. Marcus looked around the room, at the sea of faces, some embarrassed, others entertained, none intervening. Only Aisha, in the middle row, met his eyes with something resembling solidarity. His back screamed in protest at the thought of sitting for 2 hours. But leaving meant Hamilton won. I'll stand in the hallway, Marcus decided. I can hear through the door. You'll do no such thing, Hamilton snapped. You'll sit down or withdraw from my course entirely. Marcus straightened to his full height, ignoring the flare of pain. Then I'll need withdrawal forms, Professor. Whispers erupted across the lecture hall. Hamilton's face flushed crimson. Get out, he hissed. And don't expect to find welcome in any mathematics classroom at this institution. Harvard has no place for students who can't follow simple instructions. Marcus gathered his books with steady hands, though his heart raced painfully. As he walked toward the door, Aisha stood. Professor, she said clearly, the Americans with Disabilities Act specifically protects. Sit down, Ms. Perkins, Hamilton ordered. Unless you wish to join Mr. Washington. She hesitated, then slowly sank back into her seat, mouthing, "I'm sorry," as Marcus passed. In the empty hallway, Marcus leaned against the wall, the magnitude of what had just happened crashing over him. His semester abroad, his academic plans, his future connections, all potentially destroyed because a racist professor couldn't tolerate a black student standing during lectures. He pulled out his phone to call his grandmother, then stopped. No. He wouldn't burden her with this yet. First, he would fight. Harvard's history might be built on exclusion, but its future wouldn't be, not if Marcus Washington had anything to say about it. The mathematics department administrative office buzzed with whispered conversations that abruptly ceased when Marcus entered. The secretary glanced up, recognition and discomfort flashing across her face. "Mr. Washington," she said. "Dr. Lawrence is unavailable for walk-ins." "I'm not here for Dr. Lawrence," Marcus replied. "I need withdrawal forms for Professor Hamilton's class, and information about filing a formal complaint." She frowned. Complaints go through academic affairs. But regarding withdrawal, she hesitated. It's unusual to withdraw on the first day. "So is being publicly humiliated for a medical accommodation," Marcus countered. Before she could respond, the door opened and Aisha walked in, slightly breathless. "There you are," she said to Marcus as if they were longtime friends. "I've been looking everywhere." She turned to the secretary. "We have a meeting with the library research coordinator about the topology independent study." The secretary looked confused. "I don't have any. It was arranged directly through Dr. Chen," Aisha interrupted smoothly. "We're already late. Come on, Marcus." Bewildered but grateful, Marcus followed her out. "Why are you helping me?" he asked when they were safely down the corridor. "Because Hamilton was wrong," she said simply. "And because I've seen him do this before, isolate students he considers unworthy, especially students of color. No one ever stands up to him." "I didn't exactly win in there," Marcus pointed out. "You didn't run either." She gave him an appraising look. "What happened to your back, if you don't mind my asking?" Marcus stiffened. "Long story." She nodded, accepting his boundary. "Well, I'm taking you to meet someone who might actually help. Dr. Chen runs the mathematics research library. She's not afraid of Hamilton." The library occupied the entire third floor of the mathematics building. Among towering shelves stood an elderly Asian woman arranging books with methodical precision. "Dr. Chen," Aisha called. "This is Marcus Washington, the Cambridge exchange student I mentioned." The librarian studied Marcus through thick glasses. "Ah, young man who stands." Her accent was slight but noticeable. Aisha texted about Hamilton's behavior. "Predictable but disappointing." "I need to file a complaint," Marcus began. Dr. Chen waved dismissively. "Complaints against tenured professors go nowhere. Especially Hamilton, he brings prestige, grants, publications." She gestured for them to follow her deeper into the library. "But there are other ways to fight." She led them to a secluded alcove where a large blackboard covered the wall, filled with dense mathematical notation. Marcus instantly recognized high-level topology problems. "You know what this is?" Dr. Chen asked. Marcus studied the equations. A variant of the Poincare conjecture, but with additional constraints in non-Euclidean space. Dr. Chen's eyes sparked with approval. "It's called Hamilton's conjecture. 15 years unsolved. His life's work." "I've heard of it," Aisha added. "Supposedly impossible to prove or disprove." "Many have tried," Dr. Chen nodded. "All have failed. Including brilliant black mathematicians whom Hamilton rejected from his classes using similar tactics." Understanding dawned on Marcus. "You think I should try to solve it?" "That's ambitious," Dr. Chen finished. "Yes. But your paper on non-Euclidean geometry suggests unique perspective." "I read it," she added, noting his surprise. "Very impressive. Even if I could solve it, which is extremely unlikely. What would that accomplish? Marcus asked. Hamilton's reputation rests on the conjecture's difficulty, Aisha explained. He has a lucrative book deal about his unsolvable problem and receives substantial research funding. The math world believes only Hamilton himself might eventually solve it, Dr. Chen added. His ego depends on this narrative. Marcus shook his head. So basically, you want me to try solving an impossible problem to humble an arrogant professor who humiliated me? He laughed despite himself. That's a movie plot, not reality. Reality is what we make it, Dr. Chen said simply. Hamilton excluded you from his classroom. I offer you a greater classroom. She gestured to the library. Full access. All hours. Standing welcome. Marcus gazed at the complex equations, feeling an involuntary tug of intellectual curiosity. The mathematical challenge was genuinely intriguing, regardless of Hamilton. I still need to salvage my semester academically, he pointed out. One topology course withdrawal won't help my transcript. Independent study, Dr. Chen replied. I supervise. Credit transfers to Cambridge. All arranged. Marcus looked between Dr. Chen and Aisha, suspicion rising. You had this plan before I even arrived, didn't you? Aisha shrugged. Hamilton's pattern is predictable. We hoped he'd be better this time, but prepared in case he wasn't. We are not the first to resist, Dr. Chen said quietly. Just the latest. Marcus turned back to the blackboard. Hamilton's conjecture stared back at him, intimidating, tantalizing, perhaps impossible. But then, people had said the same about a black scholarship student from Chicago attending Cambridge. I'll need to understand everything about this problem, he said finally. Every failed approach, every partial solution. Dr. Chen smiled, satisfaction lighting her elderly face. Then we begin now. The library emptied as evening descended, leaving Marcus alone with Hamilton's conjecture. His back throbbed mercilessly after hours of standing, but the mathematical challenge provided welcome distraction from the pain. Both were rooted in the same soil, prejudice that had marked his body and now threatened his future. As he copied the equations into his notebook, his mind drifted back to the source of his injury. 3 years earlier. Chicago. Ferguson Academy. Ms. Blackwell taught advanced placement calculus with rigid discipline and thinly veiled contempt for the predominantly black student body. Marcus, 15 and mathematically gifted beyond his years, had corrected her derivation mistake during class. The second differential should be negative, he'd said, eager to engage with the material. Her smile had been cold. Mr. Washington believes he knows better than someone with a graduate degree from Northwestern. How presumptuous. I'm not being presumptuous, he'd persisted. The textbook confirms. The textbook, she'd interrupted, is a tool. Tools serve those qualified to use them. You serve by listening, not speaking. The humiliation had burned, but Marcus couldn't let mathematical incorrectness stand. The next day, he'd brought a printout from MIT's online calculus course demonstrating the correct derivation. Ms. Blackwell had taken the paper, examined it briefly, then torn it in half. Detention, Mr. Washington. For insubordination. During detention, she'd made him write lines at the blackboard while standing, I will respect educational authority, for 2 hours straight. When his chalk broke and he bent to retrieve it, she'd struck with her wooden ruler, catching him across his lower back with shocking force. Stand straight when addressing your superiors, she'd hissed. Your kind need discipline. The injury had seemed minor at first, a bruise, painful but temporary. But something had been damaged deeper than skin. A month later, sitting still caused shooting pain. Medical scans showed minor vertebral trauma, aggravated by inflammation that never fully subsided. His grandmother had wanted to sue, but the school administration closed ranks around Ms. Blackwell. Without witnesses willing to speak against a teacher, they had no case. The district offered a settlement, medical bills covered in exchange for silence. His grandmother, facing mounting healthcare costs, had reluctantly agreed. This isn't right, she told Marcus. But sometimes we must retreat to advance. Your mind is your weapon. Sharpen it. One day, you'll fight on better ground. Marcus blinked away the memory, refocusing on Hamilton's equations. The parallels were striking, another teacher leveraging institutional power against him, another classroom where his presence was deemed presumptuous. But this time was different. Now he had allies. Now he had credentials. And now, perhaps most importantly, he had Hamilton's conjecture, the mathematical Mount Everest that might provide a path to vindication. His phone vibrated. A text from Aisha, dinner? You've been there for hours. He responded affirmatively, gathering his notes. As he prepared to leave, Dr. Chen appeared silently between the shelves. The library sees everything, she said cryptically. Your pain. Physical, yes, but more. Marcus tensed. I'm managing. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. Mathematics heals differently than medicine. Proving what others call impossible, this sometimes heals wounds no doctor can reach. She handed him a small key. After hours access. The conjecture will be waiting. As will you. Marcus accepted the key, understanding its significance. Dr. Chen was offering more than library access, she was offering sanctuary, a place where he could stand proudly in all senses of the word. As he walked toward the campus cafe to meet Aisha, the equations of Hamilton's conjecture swirled in his mind, beginning to take new shapes, suggesting alternative approaches that others might have overlooked. Sometimes a problem required fresh eyes, eyes that saw the world differently because the world had always seen them differently. 3 weeks into the semester, Marcus established a routine. Mornings were spent in alternative mathematics courses where professors, warned by Dr. Chen about his medical condition, allowed him standing accommodations without question. Afternoons and evenings belonged to Hamilton's conjecture. The problem was more elegant than vicious, a beautiful mathematical puzzle that had resisted the most brilliant minds in the field. Marcus covered his dormitory walls with notes, much to Wesley's visible discomfort. His roommate had taken to spending most nights elsewhere, making thinly veiled comments about the ambience becoming unlivable. You might actually solve it, Aisha remarked one evening, bringing coffee to Marcus's regular spot in the library. She'd become his steadfast ally, defending him when whispers followed him through campus. Don't get ahead of yourself, Marcus cautioned, but secretly, he felt the first stirrings of possibility. He'd identified a potential weakness in Hamilton's formulation, an assumption about topological invariance that might not hold under specific conditions. Hamilton's asking questions about you, she continued, lowering her voice. About your standing arrangement in other classes. Marcus stiffened. What kind of questions? The undermining kind. Suggesting special treatment compromises academic standards. Some faculty are listening. Dr. Chen emerged from between the stacks, her timing as impeccable as always. Hamilton feels threatened, she noted. Good sign. How is that good? Marcus asked. He could make things even worse for me. When opponent becomes defensive, it means your advance is effective. Dr. Chen adjusted her glasses. But be careful. Hamilton has powerful allies. As if summoned by her warning, Wesley Princeton III appeared at the library entrance with 3 other students, all wearing identical Harvard crew team jackets. They spotted Marcus and approached with deliberate casualness. Washington, Wesley called. Working hard or hardly working? The false camaraderie didn't mask the mockery in his tone. His companion snickered. Is there something you need, Wesley? Marcus asked calmly. Just checking if the rumors are true, Wesley replied. They're saying you think you can solve Hamilton's conjecture. He glanced at the equations spread across the table. Bit ambitious for an exchange student, isn't it? Mathematics doesn't care about my enrollment status, Marcus said. Wesley leaned closer. Hamilton's conjecture has stumped Fields medalists. What makes you think you're special? Fresh perspective, Dr. Chen interjected sharply. Sometimes outsiders see what insiders cannot. Wesley straightened, noticing Dr. Chen for the first time. Dr. Chen, he acknowledged stiffly. My father sends his regards. He mentioned the library's funding review is coming up. The implied threat hung in the air. Dr. Chen's expression remained impassive, but Marcus caught the slight tightening of her shoulders. Please convey my appreciation to Trustee Princeton, she replied. Now, unless you have mathematical research to conduct, this is a designated quiet area. Wesley smirked, backing away. Good luck with the impossible problem, Washington. I'm sure you'll make history. His companions laughed as they departed. When they were gone, Marcus turned to Dr. Chen. I'm sorry. I don't want to cause trouble for you or the library. Trouble found us long before you arrived, she dismissed. Wesley's father is powerful, yes, but not omnipotent. University politics are a complex ecosystem. They're watching me now, Marcus realized. If I fail, when I fail, they'll use it to reinforce their narrative. Aisha shook her head. That's their game, making you doubt yourself. Don't play it. Precisely, Dr. Chen agreed. They expect failure because they cannot imagine success. Their limitation, not yours. Later that night, alone in the library, Marcus confronted a critical juncture in his approach to the conjecture. The conventional methods all led to the same dead end. He needed something revolutionary, a perspective shift that would bypass the mathematical trap that had caught everyone else. His back spasmed suddenly, a sharp reminder of physical reality amid abstract thought. Wincing, he paced the length of the library, trying to walk off the pain. Different angle, he murmured to himself. What if? A new possibility crystallized. What if Hamilton's entire approach was fundamentally misconceived? The traditional view treated the problem as a closed system, but what if it were actually an open one with hidden dimensions? Excitement coursed through him as he rushed back to his notes, the pain momentarily forgotten. If he was right, the solution would require techniques from seemingly unrelated mathematical disciplines, a synthesis only possible for someone willing to transgress academic boundaries. As dawn approached, Marcus stood before the blackboard where Hamilton's conjecture was displayed, now covered with his own annotations. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time, he could glimpse its beginning. Dr. Chen found him there in the morning, still standing, still working. You found something, she observed, studying his equations. Maybe, he admitted. It's either breakthrough or breakdown. Too early to tell. She nodded sagely. Mathematics requires courage. To venture where others see only darkness. It's not just about the math anymore, Marcus confessed. It's about proving Hamilton wrong, about all of it. Careful, Dr. Chen cautioned. Revenge makes poor compass. Seek truth, not vindication. Can't it be both? Marcus asked. Dr. Chen smiled enigmatically. Perhaps. But remember, conjecture does not care about justice. Only correctness. As she left, Marcus turned back to his equations. She was right, of course. The mathematics had to stand on its own merit, independent of the human drama surrounding it. Yet he couldn't fully separate the two. Each variable represented not just a mathematical value but a step toward reclaiming what Hamilton had tried to take, his dignity, his belonging in these hallowed halls. He worked through another night, standing until his legs trembled with fatigue, his back screaming in protest. But somewhere between the pain and persistence, a pattern emerged, a mathematical pathway no one had explored before. Hamilton's impossible problem might just be possible after all. Washington. Professor Williams stopped Marcus after his differential equations lecture. A word. Marcus had come to respect Williams, one of the few faculty members who treated him with genuine academic interest rather than suspicion. I received an email from Professor Hamilton, Williams began once they were alone. He's expressed concerns about your independent study arrangement. What kind of concerns? Marcus asked, though he already knew. He questions whether it meets departmental standards for rigor, Williams said carefully. And suggests Dr. Chen may be overly accommodating due to personal bias. The implication was clear: Marcus was receiving preferential treatment because of his race, not his abilities. Professor Williams, Marcus said, my independent study involves attempting Hamilton's conjecture, hardly lacking in rigor. As for Dr. Chen's mentorship, she's maintained the highest academic standards. Williams looked uncomfortable. I understand. But Hamilton has considerable influence. He's pressuring for a formal review of your status. Because I'm standing instead of sitting? Marcus asked incredulously. Because you've bypassed normal protocols, Williams corrected, though his expression suggested he recognized the pretext. Look, I'm telling you this as a warning. Hamilton is building a case. Be careful. After Williams left, Marcus texted Aisha, things escalating. Hamilton making moves. Her response was immediate: meet me at Chen's office. Now. 20 minutes later, Marcus found Aisha and Dr. Chen in intense conversation. Hamilton's called an informal faculty meeting, Aisha reported. Wesley's father will be there as a concerned trustee. They're discussing academic standards maintenance, which is code for targeting you. How do you know this? Marcus asked. My advisor let it slip, she explained. She thinks it's wrong but won't speak against Hamilton publicly. Dr. Chen looked grim. University politics turning against us faster than expected. This is about more than standing in class, isn't it? Marcus realized. Hamilton knows I'm working on his conjecture. Dr. Chen nodded. Sources say he became agitated after learning of your approach. Your methodology threatens his fundamental assumptions. That's actually encouraging, Marcus said. Mathematically speaking. Politically speaking, it's dangerous, Aisha countered. You're threatening his academic legacy. Marcus paced the small office, mind racing. I need more time. I've found a promising direction, but I'm weeks away from anything conclusive. Time we may not have, Dr. Chen said bluntly. Hamilton aims to invalidate your independent study and possibly your exchange status. On what grounds? Marcus demanded. Creating disruptive academic environment, she quoted. Circumventing proper channels. Technical violations they normally overlook. The injustice burned through Marcus. So after Hamilton kicks me out of his class for standing, he can get me removed from Harvard for finding alternative coursework. Welcome to institutional power, Aisha said bitterly. Marcus stopped pacing. Then I need to accelerate my work on the conjecture. If I can make significant progress before they move against me, mathematical breakthrough would change equation, Dr. Chen agreed. Even preliminary results might generate sufficient academic interest to counterbalance Hamilton. I'll help, Aisha offered. I'm not at your level mathematically, but I can handle research, logistics, whatever you need. Marcus looked between them, this unlikely alliance against Harvard's entrenched power structure. Thank you. Both of you. That night, fueled by urgency and righteous indignation, Marcus experienced his first genuine breakthrough. The approach he'd been developing, treating Hamilton's topological constraints as projections of higher dimensional structures, yielded a preliminary result that contradicted conventional wisdom about the conjecture's boundaries. When Dr. Chen verified his mathematics the next morning, her usual reserve cracked into a rare smile. This, she said, tapping his proof, has potential. Not solution yet, but significant advance. Enough to buy me time? Marcus asked. Her smile faded. Difficult to say. Mathematics and politics operate on different timescales. But worth trying. With Dr. Chen's guidance, Marcus prepared a brief paper outlining his approach. They submitted it to the university's mathematical preprint repository, a preliminary step toward peer review that would make his work visible to the broader mathematical community. 3 days later, Hamilton struck. Marcus received an official email from the mathematics department. His independent study was being reviewed for procedural compliance. Until the review concluded, his academic status remained provisional. "They're moving faster than we anticipated," Aisha said when Marcus showed her the email. "Hamilton must have seen your preprint." "Can they actually revoke my exchange status?" Marcus asked. "They can make it impossible to maintain," she confirmed. "Without valid course enrollment, your visa status becomes complicated." The walls seemed to close in. Marcus had faced academic discrimination before, but never with such systematic efficiency. This wasn't just one prejudiced professor, this was an institution protecting its own, regardless of merit. Yet amid the political maneuvering, something unexpected happened. Marcus's preprint attracted attention. Mathematics forums began discussing his novel approach. A professor from MIT emailed inquiring about his methodology. "See," Aisha said, showing him the growing online discussion. "They can't silence the mathematics itself. But could mathematical interest translate to institutional protection quickly enough?" As Marcus returned to his equations that night, the question loomed larger than Hamilton's conjecture itself. The race was on, not just to solve an impossible problem, but to do it before those in power could ensure he'd never get the chance. "Mr. Washington." The departmental secretary's voice was professionally neutral as Marcus entered the office. "Dr. Lawrence will see you now." Marcus straightened his shoulders, ignored the flare of pain, and walked into the department head's office. Dr. Lawrence sat behind an imposing desk, Professor Hamilton beside him wearing a poorly concealed expression of satisfaction. "Please, stand if you must," Dr. Lawrence said, his tone making it clear he considered the accommodation an inconvenience rather than a necessity. "Thank you," Marcus replied, remaining upright. "I understand you wanted to discuss my academic status." "Yes." Dr. Lawrence slid a document across the desk. "We've completed our review of your independent study arrangement. Unfortunately, it fails to meet departmental requirements for structure and supervision." "Dr. Chen has been supervising my work diligently," Marcus protested. "Dr. Chen is a librarian," Hamilton interjected, "not a research faculty member. Independent studies require faculty oversight." "She holds a PhD in mathematics from Princeton," Marcus countered. "Her credentials are irrelevant to departmental policy," Dr. Lawrence interrupted. "The issue isn't Dr. Chen's qualifications but procedural compliance." Marcus recognized the tactic, using bureaucratic technicalities to disguise discriminatory intent. "What are my options?" he asked, cutting to the chase. Dr. Lawrence exchanged glances with Hamilton. "You'll need to enroll in standard coursework to maintain your exchange status. Professor Hamilton has graciously offered to readmit you to his topology seminar, with the understanding that you'll adhere to classroom protocols, including proper seating." The trap was elegant in its cruelty: either sacrifice his physical well-being by sitting through Hamilton's lectures, or lose his place at Harvard entirely. "And if my medical condition prevents sitting for extended periods?" Marcus asked. "Then perhaps," Hamilton said smoothly, "Harvard isn't the appropriate environment for your studies." The echo of his earlier humiliation was deliberate. Marcus felt a surge of anger but kept his expression neutral. "I'll need time to consider my options," he said. "Of course," Dr. Lawrence nodded. "You have until Monday to either enroll in approved coursework or make other arrangements." 3 days. They were giving him 3 days to either capitulate or leave. Outside the office, Aisha was waiting. One look at his face told her everything. "That bad?" she asked as they walked across campus. "Worse," Marcus confirmed, explaining the ultimatum. "They're forcing me to choose between my health and my education." "We need to fight this," Aisha insisted. "File a formal discrimination complaint." "The Disability Services Office will take weeks to process," Marcus finished. "By then, I'll be back in England, or Chicago." They walked in frustrated silence until Aisha suddenly stopped. "What about medical documentation? If we had official proof of your condition." "My doctors are in Chicago," Marcus pointed out. "Getting records transferred?" "No. We get new documentation. Here, Now. She pulled out her phone. My cousin is a resident at Harvard Medical. She can get you in today. 4 hours later, Marcus sat carefully on the edge of an examination table as Dr. Sarah Johnson reviewed his X-rays. The damage is consistent with trauma, she confirmed. There's evidence of an improperly healed microfracture and chronic inflammation. Standing rather than sitting is an entirely reasonable accommodation. Will you document that officially? Aisha asked. For the university. Already done, Dr. Johnson replied, handing Marcus a sealed envelope. This should satisfy any reasonable administrative requirements. What if they're not reasonable? Marcus asked quietly. Dr. Johnson's expression hardened. Then we escalate. Harvard Medical takes disabilities seriously, even when other departments might not. Armed with medical documentation, Marcus and Aisha returned to campus. But as they crossed Harvard Yard, Marcus stumbled, a knife-like pain shooting through his back. Whoa! Aisha caught his arm. Are you okay? Marcus straightened with effort, breathing through clenched teeth. Just a spasm. Happens sometimes. You should rest, she urged. You've been standing for hours. Can't, he said grimly. Need to work on the conjecture. It's my only real leverage. Marcus, Aisha said firmly, you're at your breaking point. Physically and mentally. One night of rest won't derail everything. Looking at her concerned face, Marcus realized she was right. The constant pain, academic pressure, and institutional gaslighting had pushed him to his limits. His body was betraying him, and his mind was following suit. Fine, he conceded. One night. Back in his dormitory, Marcus found Wesley packing a weekend bag. Hot date? Marcus asked, attempting normalcy. Wesley barely glanced up. Heading to my family's place in the Berkshires. Some of us actually belong in these circles, Washington. Too exhausted to engage, Marcus began spreading his research across the floor, his preferred working position that minimized back pain. Seriously? Wesley scoffed. Your little math project again. Haven't you heard? Hamilton's having your status reviewed. Pretty soon, you'll be taking your standing routine back to wherever you came from. Marcus froze. How do you know about that? Wesley smirked. My father's a trustee, remember? The grown-ups talk. Hamilton says your approach to his conjecture is fundamentally flawed, sophomore-level mistakes. Embarrassing, really. The casual cruelty, the smug certainty that Marcus would fail, it crystallized everything he'd been fighting against. Not just Hamilton, not just Harvard, but the entire system designed to make him doubt himself. After Wesley left, Marcus sat in silence, the medical documentation in one hand, his research notes in the other. Both represented paths forward, but neither guaranteed justice. Fighting the administration might preserve his status temporarily but would consume energy better spent on mathematics. Focusing solely on the conjecture might yield breakthroughs but wouldn't matter if he was expelled before completing his work. His phone buzzed with a message from his grandmother. How are you, my brilliant boy? For the first time since arriving at Harvard, Marcus allowed himself to cry, silent tears of frustration, pain, and determination. Then he wiped his face, sent his grandmother a reassuring reply that revealed nothing of his struggles, and made a decision. He would fight on both fronts. Submit the medical documentation through official channels while pouring every remaining ounce of energy into Hamilton's conjecture. If Harvard wanted to break him, they would discover what his grandmother had always known: broken things can still be powerful. Sometimes, they're the most powerful of all. The mathematics building stood silent and imposing against the night sky. At 1:38 a.m., Marcus used Dr. Chen's key to enter the deserted structure, his footsteps echoing through empty corridors. His back felt like shattered glass, each step sending shards of pain through his nervous system. Earlier that evening, he'd submitted his medical documentation to the university's administrative system. Whether it would make any difference remained uncertain. What was certain was Monday's deadline, and the fact that his best defense remained solving the unsolvable. The research library was dark except for the security lights. Marcus made his way to his usual workspace, where Hamilton's conjecture waited on the blackboard like a challenge written in chalk dust and impossibility. As he arranged his notes, the door creaked. Marcus turned sharply, expecting security or perhaps Hamilton himself. Instead, the night janitor, Mr. Jefferson, stood in the doorway. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you," the older man said. "Saw the light. Everything okay?" "Just working late, Mr. Jefferson," Marcus assured him. They'd developed a friendly rapport over weeks of night sessions. "Mighty late, even for you." Mr. Jefferson studied Marcus's face. "You look like a man running out of road." Marcus managed a weak smile. "Just running out of time." The janitor nodded knowingly. "Been at Harvard 30 years. Seen your kind before." "My kind?" Marcus tensed. "Fighters," Mr. Jefferson clarified. "Ones who won't let the system tell them what they can't do." He gestured to the equations. "Still working on Hamilton's problem?" "Still trying," Marcus confirmed. "Getting closer, but the hourglass is running low," Mr. Jefferson finished. "I hear things, you know. Cleaning staff are invisible to professors. They talk like we're furniture." He shook his head. "What Hamilton's doing ain't right." "It's not just Hamilton," Marcus sighed. "It's the whole structure." "True enough. But structures can be rebuilt." Mr. Jefferson glanced at the blackboard. "My daddy used to say, sometimes God's greatest gifts arrive at midnight. Maybe that's true for equations too." With a supportive nod, he continued his rounds, leaving Marcus alone with Hamilton's conjecture once more. For 2 hours, Marcus worked furiously, pursuing the promising approach from his preprint. The mathematics flowed through him, complex, beautiful, tantalizing, but the complete solution remained elusive. By 2 a.m., exhaustion clouded his thinking. His back throbbed mercilessly. Standing had become torture, but sitting was impossible. He paced instead, trying to maintain blood flow and clear his mind. "What am I missing?" he muttered, staring at his latest attempt. The approach was sound, the logic impeccable, yet something fundamental eluded him. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the equations float in mental space rather than physical. Without visual distractions, patterns began shifting, rearranging themselves according to deeper principles. And then, a flash of insight. Everyone, including Hamilton himself, had been treating the conjecture as a closed system with fixed boundaries. Marcus had made progress by recognizing higher dimensional projections, but he'd still accepted certain limiting assumptions. What if the system wasn't just open, but fundamentally unbounded? His eyes snapped open. "Oh my God," he whispered. With fevered intensity, he attacked the blackboard, erasing sections and rewriting with a completely new framework. The mathematics poured from him like water through a broken dam, automatic, unstoppable. The solution wasn't about finding the right answer within the established parameters. It was about recognizing that the parameters themselves were the illusion. Like standing instead of sitting, Marcus murmured, the metaphor suddenly perfect. The solution was always there, just not where everyone was looking. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the final piece fell into place. Marcus stepped back, chalk dust covering his trembling hands, and beheld what no mathematician had achieved in 15 years, a complete, elegant solution to Hamilton's conjecture. The proof was revolutionary yet mathematically rigorous. It demonstrated conclusively that Hamilton's original formulation contained a hidden contradiction, which explained why conventional approaches always failed at certain boundaries. "I did it," Marcus whispered, the reality of his accomplishment slowly sinking in. "I actually did it." The sound of slow applause startled him. Mr. Jefferson stood in the doorway, a wide smile on his weathered face. "Told you," the janitor said. "Midnight gifts." "I need to document this," Marcus said urgently. "Before anyone can." "Already happening," Mr. Jefferson interrupted, holding up his phone. Been recording the last 20 minutes. My nephew's a mathematics graduate student at Howard. He'll understand what he's seeing. Marcus stared at him in grateful disbelief. Mr. Jefferson, I don't know how to thank you. No thanks needed. Just promise me something. Anything. The janitor's expression grew serious. When they try to diminish this, and they will, don't let them. What you just did belongs to history. Don't let anyone rewrite it. As dawn approached, Marcus photographed the blackboard, digitized his notes, and with Mr. Jefferson as witness, time-stamped and uploaded everything to the university's academic repository. By morning, the mathematics world would have incontrovertible evidence of what had happened in this quiet library at 2:17 a.m., an impossible problem solved by the very student Harvard had tried to exclude. As Marcus finally allowed his exhausted body to rest, sitting on the library floor with his back against the wall, he thought of Ms. Blackwell, of Hamilton, of every authority figure who had tried to keep him in his proper place. The solution on the blackboard wasn't just a mathematical breakthrough. It was a declaration that some problems required standing when everyone else insisted on sitting. Some truths could only be seen from positions the establishment deemed inappropriate. Mr. Jefferson's words echoed in his mind, "What you just did belongs to history." For the first time since arriving at Harvard, Marcus allowed himself to truly believe it. Marcus awoke to his phone buzzing incessantly. Sunlight streamed through the library windows. He'd fallen asleep against the wall, his body finally surrendering to exhaustion after the breakthrough. 17 missed calls. 38 text messages. His uploaded solution was causing the mathematical equivalent of an earthquake. "Answer your phone." Aisha's latest text demanded. The entire department is losing their minds. As if summoned by the message, the library door burst open. Aisha rushed in, followed by Dr. Chen and Professor Williams. "You actually did it," Williams said, staring at the blackboard in astonishment. "I've reviewed your submission 3 times already. The approach is revolutionary." "It's correct?" Marcus asked, wincing as he stood up. Despite his confidence in the proof, external validation mattered. "The core mathematical logic is sound," Williams confirmed. "Some details need elaboration, but the fundamental insight, treating the boundaries as projections of an unbounded system, it's brilliant." "It's paradigm shifting," Dr. Chen added, her usual reserve replaced by barely contained excitement. "Already, mathematicians worldwide are examining your approach." "And Hamilton?" Marcus asked. Their expressions darkened. "Claiming preliminary review shows fatal flaws," Dr. Chen reported. "Demanding retraction of your upload." "He's called an emergency department meeting for noon," Williams added. "To discuss mathematical integrity concerns." "Translation, damage control," Aisha said bitterly. Marcus absorbed this with calm determination. He'd expected resistance. Let him try. The mathematics stands on its own merit. "This goes beyond mathematics now," Williams said carefully. "Hamilton has staked his reputation on this conjecture. Your solution doesn't just solve it, it proves his fundamental approach was misconceived." "Academic politics about to become very intense," Dr. Chen warned. "Hamilton has powerful allies. They will not accept defeat easily." Marcus's phone buzzed again, a university email notification. "My accommodation request has been denied," he reported after reading it. "Insufficient documentation, apparently." "That's impossible," Aisha protested. "The medical evidence was conclusive." "Evidence matters less than influence," Dr. Chen said grimly. Another notification appeared, this one from Dr. Lawrence, demanding Marcus's immediate presence at the department meeting. The message concluded with a thinly veiled threat: failure to attend may result in disciplinary action affecting your academic standing. "They're moving fast," Williams observed. "Trying to contain this before external validation makes it unstoppable." Marcus stood straighter, ignoring his pain. "Then we move faster. Professor Williams, would you be willing to formally review my solution?" Williams hesitated briefly, then nodded. I'll face professional backlash from Hamilton, but yes. Mathematics must transcend politics. I'll contact external mathematicians, Dr. Chen offered. Former colleagues at Princeton, MIT. Independent verification strengthens your position. And I'll make sure everyone knows what's happening, Aisha added. The student newspaper, mathematics forums, social media. They can't silence what's already public. The morning passed in a blur of preparation. Williams meticulously documented the mathematical validity of Marcus's approach. Dr. Chen secured commitments from 3 respected mathematicians to review the solution immediately. Aisha mobilized student allies to attend the department meeting as silent observers. At 11:55 a.m., Marcus stood outside the mathematics department conference room, medical documentation in one hand, proof verification in the other. His back screamed in protest after hours of standing, but he refused painkillers. He needed absolute clarity for what was coming. Inside, the room was already packed. Department faculty lined one side of the table, students and observers along the walls. At the head sat Dr. Lawrence, with Hamilton beside him looking thunderous. Trustee Princeton, Wesley's father, occupied a corner seat, his presence an obvious intimidation tactic. Mr. Washington, Dr. Lawrence began coldly. We've called this meeting to address serious concerns regarding your unauthorized mathematical submission and continued disregard for departmental protocols. I'm prepared to discuss both, Marcus replied steadily. There's little to discuss, Hamilton interjected. Your supposed solution contains elementary errors that would embarrass a first-year graduate student. I've prepared a preliminary refutation. He slid a document across the table. Marcus didn't touch it. Before addressing the mathematics, Marcus said, I'd like to submit supplementary medical documentation regarding my standing accommodation. He placed Dr. Johnson's paperwork on the table. Harvard Medical has confirmed my physical condition necessitates standing rather than sitting during extended periods. Murmurs spread through the room. Dr. Lawrence scanned the documents with obvious displeasure. While we'll review this information, he said dismissively, it doesn't excuse bypassing proper channels or releasing unvetted mathematical claims that may damage departmental reputation. The solution has been vetted, Professor Williams announced, standing. I've conducted a thorough review and found the core mathematical approach sound and innovative. Hamilton's face flushed crimson. Williams, you've clearly been hasty in your assessment. The flaws are not present in the actual mathematical logic, Williams interrupted firmly. I've documented my analysis here. He distributed copies of his report. Additionally, Dr. Chen has arranged independent verification from external mathematicians. Dr. Chen nodded. First responses already arriving. Professor Zhang from Princeton confirms innovative approach with sound mathematical foundation. The room's atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Faculty members leafed through Williams's analysis with growing interest. Student observers whispered excitedly. Hamilton slammed his hand on the table. This is absurd. A scholarship student with no advanced degree cannot possibly have solved what has resisted the field's greatest minds for 15 years. The naked prejudice in his statement hung in the air. Several faculty members looked uncomfortable. Mathematics doesn't care about credentials, Marcus said quietly. Only correctness. The evidence suggests Mr. Washington's solution is indeed correct, Williams affirmed. It represents a paradigm shift in approach that explains why conventional methods have failed. Trustee Princeton cleared his throat. Regardless of mathematical technicalities, there remains the issue of proper protocols. Harvard has standards, like ensuring students with documented medical conditions receive appropriate accommodations. Aisha interjected from the observer section. Or ensuring faculty don't discriminate based on race or background. Dr. Lawrence glared at her. Ms. Perkins, observers are not permitted to speak during department proceedings. Then perhaps we should discuss this in a more appropriate forum, suggested a new voice. Dr. Sarah Johnson entered the room, medical credentials prominently displayed. As Mr. Washington's physician, I'm concerned about potential violations of disability accommodation laws. The calculated intervention caused visible panic among the administration representatives. Disability law violations carried serious consequences for the university. "This meeting is temporarily adjourned," Dr. Lawrence announced hastily. "We'll reconvene after proper review of all documentation." As the room cleared, Hamilton approached Marcus, voice low and venomous. "This isn't over, Washington. You might have clever allies, but you've made powerful enemies. Your solution won't stand." Marcus met his gaze steadily. "The mathematics already stands, Professor. That's the beauty of it, truth doesn't require your permission to exist." Outside, Aisha grabbed Marcus's arm excitedly. "Did you see their faces? They're terrified this is going public." "It already has," Dr. Chen reported, checking her phone. "Mathematics forums discussing your solution extensively. 3 verification commitments now." Williams approached with a rare smile. "Lawrence just pulled me aside. They're reconsidering your accommodation request and pausing any review of your academic status." The victory felt significant but incomplete. Hamilton's refutation, however flawed, would circulate. Institutional resistance would continue behind closed doors. The struggle wasn't over. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Now," Williams said, "we prepare for the real battle, full public defense of your solution. Hamilton won't surrender his conjecture without a fight." Marcus nodded, determination replacing exhaustion. The mathematics was sound. The truth was on his side. For a black student from Chicago who'd been told he didn't belong, that was a foundation stronger than any Ivy League tradition. Word spread through mathematical circles with unprecedented speed. Within 72 hours of Marcus's breakthrough, his solution to Hamilton's conjecture had been preliminarily verified by mathematicians from Princeton, MIT, and Stanford. The university, recognizing the growing academic tsunami, scrambled to adapt. Dr. Lawrence, suddenly solicitous, invited Marcus to present his work at a special department symposium. "An opportunity to explain your methodology to the broader mathematical community," he called it, though Marcus recognized the damage control attempt. "They're trying to reclaim ownership of your discovery," Aisha warned as they prepared in the library. "If they can't discredit it, they'll try to co-opt it." "Let them try," Marcus replied calmly. "The mathematical record is clear. The timestamps, the documentation, everything proves where and how this solution originated." The symposium was scheduled for Friday afternoon, strategically, the end of the week, minimizing immediate media attention. But word had spread beyond containment. Mathematics departments nationwide had announced remote viewing options for their students. 3 prominent mathematical journals had requested submission rights. As Marcus entered the packed auditorium, he noticed television cameras, unusual for a mathematics presentation. University public relations staff hovered nervously at the edges. "Standing room only," Aisha whispered, her pun intentional. "Half the mathematics world is watching online." At the front, Hamilton sat stone-faced beside Dr. Lawrence and several distinguished faculty members. Trustee Princeton occupied a prominent seat, Wesley beside him smirking. Mr. Jefferson had positioned himself by the door, a supportive presence in maintenance uniform. Dr. Lawrence approached the podium. "Welcome to this special mathematical symposium. Today, exchange student Marcus Washington will present his proposed approach to Professor Hamilton's long-standing conjecture, followed by analysis from our faculty." The subtle diminishment in the introduction, exchange student, proposed approach, wasn't lost on Marcus. The politics had begun before he'd spoken a single equation. Taking his place at the podium, Marcus surveyed the room. Hundreds of eyes watched, some skeptical, others curious, a few openly hostile. His back throbbed, his standing posture now a symbol as much as a necessity. "Thank you, Dr. Lawrence," Marcus began. "Before addressing the mathematics, I believe context matters. 3 months ago, I arrived at Harvard as a Cambridge exchange student and was immediately expelled from Professor Hamilton's topology course, not for academic deficiency, but for standing during lectures." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Hamilton shifted uncomfortably. I stand because I must, Marcus continued. At 15, a teacher at my high school struck me across the back with a wooden ruler for correcting her mathematical error. The injury causes chronic pain when sitting for extended periods. The audience's discomfort was palpable. This wasn't the sanitized mathematical discussion the administration had planned. I attempted to submit medical documentation, which was initially rejected, Marcus continued, his voice steady. Only after solving Hamilton's conjecture did accommodations suddenly become available to me. Dr. Lawrence leaned forward. Mr. Washington, the symposium topic is mathematics, not administrative procedures. The mathematics cannot be separated from its human context, Marcus replied. The solution to Hamilton's conjecture emerged precisely because I was forced to stand, literally and metaphorically, outside traditional academic structures. He turned to the whiteboard, beginning his mathematical explanation. The fundamental insight came from questioning assumptions everyone else accepted. For 40 minutes, Marcus walked the audience through his solution. He explained how conventional approaches failed because they treated the system's boundaries as fixed rather than projective, how the contradictions Hamilton had deemed unsolvable were actually indicators of a more complex underlying structure. The mathematics was elegant, revolutionary, and, most devastatingly for Hamilton, correct. Even non-specialists could recognize the beauty of the approach. As Marcus concluded, the auditorium fell momentarily silent, then erupted in applause. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. Professor Williams smiled openly. Even some faculty members seemed impressed despite themselves. Hamilton rose abruptly. While Mr. Washington's presentation shows creativity, he began, his voice tight, it fundamentally mischaracterizes my original conjecture. What he's solved is essentially a different problem. That's not accurate, Professor Williams countered immediately. The mathematical record clearly shows. The mathematical record is my work, Hamilton interrupted sharply. I believe I understand my own conjecture better than an undergraduate student, regardless of how special Harvard has decided to treat him. The room tensed at the implicit racism. Several students looked outraged. Marcus returned to the podium. Mathematics isn't about authority, Professor Hamilton. It's about proof. My solution addresses your conjecture precisely as formulated in your 2008 paper, which I've cited extensively. Your solution contains unrigorous shortcuts, Hamilton insisted desperately. Assumptions that have been independently verified by mathematicians at 3 institutions, Marcus completed. Including 2 Fields medalists who have submitted written confirmations. Dr. Lawrence, sensing disaster, attempted intervention. Perhaps we should take questions from. I have a question, called a voice from the back. Aisha stood, smartphone in hand. I've been researching Professor Hamilton's publication history. In 2010, he rejected a paper from Dr. James Washington of Howard University that proposed an approach remarkably similar to elements of Marcus's solution. Dr. Washington is Marcus's uncle. The rejection letter called the approach mathematically naive and unworthy of serious consideration. Would Professor Hamilton care to explain this discrepancy? Shocked murmurs swept the room. Hamilton's face drained of color. This is inappropriate, Dr. Lawrence protested. Ms. Perkins, this forum isn't. It's entirely appropriate, countered Dr. Chen, rising from her seat. Academic integrity includes acknowledging contributions. If similar approaches were previously dismissed along racial lines, that belongs in this discussion. Hamilton stood, visibly shaking. I've endured enough of this spectacle. My refutation will be published through proper channels, not this circus atmosphere. As he moved to leave, Marcus spoke clearly, Professor Hamilton, mathematics thrives on open debate. If my solution is flawed, demonstrate it here, now, before your peers and students. The challenge hung in the air. Hamilton froze, trapped between retreat and confrontation. I don't debate with students, he said finally, the weakness of his position evident to everyone. Then perhaps you should reconsider your educational vocation, Marcus replied quietly. Hamilton stormed out, his academic authority diminished with each step. The symposium erupted into conversations, questions, and exclamations. University officials huddled in urgent consultation. Dr. Lawrence attempted to regain control. We'll conclude the formal presentation portion. Faculty reviewers will submit written analyses in the coming weeks. But it was too late for institutional damage control. Marcus Washington, the standing student they had tried to exclude, had definitively solved Harvard's impossible problem while exposing the prejudice embedded within academic power structures. As journalists approached and mathematicians clustered to discuss implications, Marcus found himself at the center of a storm he had created simply by refusing to sit when standing was necessary, mathematically and morally. Mr. Jefferson caught his eye from across the room and offered a subtle nod of pride. Some victories transcended equations, proving theorems about justice that were even more beautiful than mathematics. 6 weeks after the symposium, Marcus stood in Dr. Chen's library for the last time. The blackboard still displayed his solution, now accompanied by annotations from visiting mathematicians who had pilgrimaged to see where the breakthrough occurred. "It's become a landmark," Aisha remarked, joining him. "Dr. Chen says people photograph it daily." "Not bad for an exchange student with a standing problem," Marcus smiled. The aftermath had unfolded with mathematical predictability. Hamilton had taken emergency sabbatical after his hastily published refutation was systematically dismantled by peer reviewers. Dr. Lawrence announced early retirement. The university established a task force on accessibility and inclusion, with Dr. Chen and Dr. Johnson as founding members. Most significantly, Marcus's solution had been accepted for publication in the prestigious Annals of Mathematics, with a special note acknowledging similar approaches by underrepresented mathematicians that had been previously overlooked, including his uncles. "Have you decided?" Aisha asked, gesturing to the letters spread across the table. Since solving Hamilton's conjecture, Marcus had received offers from every elite mathematics program in the country, full scholarships, research positions, speaking invitations. The academic world that had questioned his presence now competed for it. "I'm going home," Marcus said simply. "Back to Chicago." Aisha's surprise was evident. "After everything you've accomplished here? You could have any position you want." "Exactly," Marcus nodded. "Which is why I'm choosing to teach at my old high school while completing my doctorate through MIT's hybrid program." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You're going back to change things where they started." "Ms. Blackwell retired last year," Marcus confirmed. "They need an AP calculus teacher who actually understands both mathematics and standing up when necessary." The library door opened as Dr. Chen entered with Mr. Jefferson and Professor Williams. "We came to say goodbye," Williams explained. "And to thank you. Your work has transformed more than mathematics at Harvard." "The transformation has barely begun," Marcus replied. "One black student solving one impossible problem doesn't fix systemic issues. But it creates reference point," Dr. Chen said. "Future students will know, barriers can be broken." Mr. Jefferson stepped forward, extending his hand. "My nephew's been accepted to the mathematics PhD program here. Says your work inspired him to apply." Marcus smiled, clasping the older man's hand. "Midnight gifts keep giving." "Speaking of gifts," Williams interjected, "the department has established a new research position in computational topology. Aisha, we'd like to offer it to you when you complete your degree." Aisha's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Talent deserves recognition," Williams said simply. "Regardless of traditional pathways." As they said their goodbyes, Marcus felt the symmetry of his journey, from Chicago to Cambridge to Harvard and back again, forever changed but returning to where he was needed most. Outside, campus was transforming for spring. Students lounged on the grass, some sitting, others standing, positions of choice rather than necessity. Among them, Marcus spotted Wesley talking intensely with a black student from the mathematics department, the conversation seemingly genuine, not performative. Small changes. Incremental recalculations. His phone buzzed with a message from his grandmother, "Coming to pick you up at O'Hare tomorrow. So proud I might burst." As Marcus Washington left Harvard Yard for the last time, he walked tall despite his pain. The impossible problem had never been Hamilton's conjecture. It had been the systems that determined who belonged in which spaces, who could stand and who must sit, whose solutions were brilliant and whose were inappropriate. That problem remained unsolved on a global scale. But for one black boy from Chicago with a damaged back and a brilliant mind, a critical theorem had been proven beyond doubt: sometimes standing when everyone demands you sit is exactly the perspective needed to see the solution that changes everything. The real work, the impossible, necessary work, was just beginning. Dear friend, this story reminds us that brilliance exists everywhere, in Chicago neighborhoods, in students who stand rather than sit, in minds society too often dismisses. The barriers facing talented black students in elite institutions aren't just individual acts of prejudice, but systems designed to determine who belongs and who doesn't. When we challenge these systems, we create space for extraordinary gifts that benefit us all. If Marcus's journey moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate resilience, expose injustice, and remind us that sometimes, standing when everyone demands you sit is exactly what changes everything.